Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Really, this Bhagavatam, it's Amritam. It's pure nectar. Amritam Phalam. It's pure nectar. And we really, every day practically we should, and that's an injunction, that is an instruction that we should every day hear from Srimad Bhagavatam. There's so much nectar. It's just such a incredible intellectual nourishment that it provides. You don't need anything else, and when you're faced with anything else, you just can't relate to it at all, because this is so amazing. It's so wonderful. It's so instructive. It's so educating. It's so pleasing to the heart. So, who doesn't have Srimad Bhagavatam? See how many people don't have Srimad Bhagavatam. Everybody should have Srimad Bhagavatam. I also, when I was studying, I also got Srimad Bhagavatam. And I read it. Practically as soon as I got it, I just finished almost everything. I couldn't read or study anything else practically almost when I started reading Bhagavad. Okay. So we are discussing, this is Canto 4, Chapter 26, King Puranjana goes to the forest to hunt. Text 24. Okay, so what did we learn so far? What did you learn so far? Yes. Huh? See? Not last one, even before. There is cheating business going on. Okay, anybody else? Nobody learned anything. Nobody. Okay, yes, Deepak.
So King Puranjana goes to forest and leaves his wife.
Okay, King Puranjana goes to forest and leaves his wife. Okay. What does that mean?
So since he was too attached to his wife, but still he decided to go and hunt hunting.
And then he was attached to something else, no?
Yes.
And then he forgot about his wife.
Yes.
So, what did we say the wife represents? It's not. It's both. It's literal and it's not literal. Huh? Yes, correct.
Wife represents intelligence.
Wife represents good intelligence. Yeah. Wife represents good intelligence. Or spiritual consciousness also. And Puranjana represents what? Or whom? Huh? Who said? Who didn't raise their hand? Who wants to get suspended? Well,
Our senses.
our senses. But it's not our senses. Any other? Yes.
He represents us living entities.
He represents us living entities, jiva, conditioned soul. That's what we do. We go out and hunt, no?
Yes.
We hunt something or someone else, no? Puranjana was, see, that's in ancient time, that was the system. They go and hunt animals, no? In the forest. And we go in the city and hunt some other animals, which are almost like we are. And then which are acting and behaving like animals. So that's the Kali Yuga Lila going on. So that's what King Puranjana did. He was hunting for some other animals. Okay. So, anything else? There were many points. I mean, yes. Okay, Diva.
So after coming back, so he was looking after her wife,
His wife.
but he find that she is not in her bed and she's lying on the floor and she was not decorated. She was crying and
She was neglected.
yes, she was neglected.
So that's what we do in this material world. We are doing so many things and we neglect our real consciousness, ourselves. Actually, we're neglecting ourselves. We're neglecting ourselves. Okay. I was thinking like last time we should do a little chanting now before we start. I think it's good. 5 minutes. That's actually the system, but very often we just jump into discussion, which is fine also. But chanting is it's very purifying. It just enables us also to focus a little more, to chase away all the other thoughts that you brought now here from wherever. Chanting helps us a lot. Okay, so we will chant. Okay, I'll offer also this pranam prayers, invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya. Now this one we will do on Saturday. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Chakshunamritamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vishnu Tulishna Bhakti Lata Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Krishna Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sadguru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Okay, so we are reading this number 20. Vishastam Pashyanavitabhayam Unmuditam Trilokyam Anyatra Vaimuraripur Taratram Dasat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Lata Swami Srila Prabhupada. O hero's wife, kindly tell me, if someone has offended you, I am prepared to give such a person punishment as long as he does not belong to the Brahman caste. For both the servant of Murari, who Krishna, I excuse no one within or beyond this three world. No one can freely move after offending you, for I am prepared to punish him. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, a Brahmana or one who is properly qualified to understand the absolute truth, that is, one belonging to the most intelligent social order, as well as the devotee of Lord Krishna, who is known as Mura Dvisha, enemy of a demon named Mura, is not subject to the rules and regulations of the state. In other words, upon breaking the laws of the state, everyone can be punished by the government except the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas never transgress the laws of the state or the laws of nature because they know perfectly well the resultant reactions caused by such law breaking. Even though they may sometimes appear to violate the laws, they are not to be punished by the king. This instruction was given to King Pachinabhahisha by Narad Muni. King Puranjana was a representative of King Pachinabhahisha. And Narad Muni was reminding King Pachinabhahisha of his forefather Maharaj Prithu, who never chastised a Brahman or a Vaishnava. Intelligence or pure Krishna consciousness becomes polluted by material activities. Pure consciousness can be revived by the process of sacrifice, charity, pious activity, etc. But when one pollutes his Krishna consciousness by offending a Brahman or Vaishnava, it is very difficult to revive. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described the Vaishnava aparad, or offense to a Vaishnava, as a mad elephant offense. One should be very careful not to offend a Vaishnava or a Brahmana. Even the great yogi Durvasa was harassed by Sudarshan Chakra, and he offended the Vaishnava Maharaj Ambarish, who was neither a Brahmana nor a sannyasi, but an ordinary householder. Maharaj Ambarish was a Vaishnava, and consequently Durvasa Muni was chastised. The conclusion is that if Krishna consciousness is covered by material sins, one can eliminate the sins simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. But if one pollutes his Krishna consciousness by offending a Brahmana or Vaishnava, one cannot revive it until one properly atones for the sin by pleasing the offended Vaishnava or Brahmana. This was the course that Durvasa Muni had to follow, for he surrendered unto Maharaj Ambarish. A Vaishnava aparad cannot be atoned for by any means other than by begging the pardon of the offended Vaishnava. Okay, so we offer the prayers, Hare Krishna. So here is it that King Puranjana is addressing his wife, that we said he's addressing his neglected consciousness, his neglected intelligence. And apparently now he's ready to defend that consciousness, to protect that consciousness. He's ready to do whatever it's in his ability to revive, like I said, to revive that relationship that he had. So that's noteworthy. That's something that one should do, that actually is one's duty. One has to protect those who are dependent upon him. So that's resembling some, as we said, revived or awoken dormant state that very often we find ourselves in. When we come to Krishna consciousness, when we start practicing Krishna consciousness, that the dormant state becomes aroused. And then we start to realize actually what is our position in terms of material energy, what is our position in terms of spiritual energy. Of course, that depends on a certain state, but at least there is some recognition. There is some recognition. And then, like here we see King Puranjana acts as if, as he should be acting. And as he wasn't acting earlier. So he recognized that, yes, I should have done this. I should have been more conscious. I should have been more protective. And we saw earlier that he was lamenting. He was not satisfied that he has been doing so. And that's important when one revives his Krishna consciousness, because one neglects it. Now we are neglecting our Krishna consciousness. We are neglecting really ourselves. That's what is the real purpose. We are neglecting ourselves. We are trying to satisfy senses which are not the self. We are trying to satisfy the mind which is not the self. So whether it on a gross or a subtle level, we are trying to act in such a way to gain some pleasure, to gain some satisfaction, to gain control, enjoyment. But as this has nothing to do with our real self. So when we realize what the real self is, then that is that awakening of Krishna consciousness. And then one starts acting to protect that Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So we have to be protective of Krishna consciousness. We cannot now, as we have neglected that consciousness earlier, once that some kind of, at least attention is brought to it, we have to be very conscious. We have to be very protective, very conscious and very Krishna conscious. So very protective of Krishna consciousness. We cannot allow ourselves to, again, extinguish that consciousness, or to cover that consciousness, or to dilute that consciousness, to contaminate that consciousness. We have to be extremely cautious. So that is the process of Bhakti Yoga, to get revived it, to get it revived, and to get it protected, because we know any moment we can, again, fall back, and even worse, what to speak, same position where we were, or even worse position. That means being unconscious, really dulled, covered by the lower modes of material nature. Covered means being bound, being ignorant absolutely of our position. And one therefore has to be very cautious, because it's not difficult to pollute that consciousness that we have. We are by nature Tatashta Shakti, and there is every chance for us to become distracted by anything. And by little distraction, there is the covering that follows, covering by the lower modes. Because distraction is certain attraction, because material energy has its potency. Now the famous verses of second chapter Bhagavad Gita, Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsa Samgasteshu Prajayate, right? By contemplation one develops attachment, by attachment one develops lust, to covet, to possess, and then everything, whole entanglement within material world or existence therefore follows. So we have to be extremely cautious that doesn't happen. And every moment we can become bewildered. Every moment we can become bewildered. Mind is so tricky. Mind is so tuned into material enjoyment. So we have to be extremely protective. Sometimes, we might be challenged that why we are so maybe sometimes fanatical. Fanatical means somebody who's like really very staunchly, holding to something, or practicing something or doing something without any other considerations. So, well, that might be the case, but again, law of self-preservation, it's very essential. So in spiritual life, we have to act on that level. We have to preserve that Krishna consciousness. It's so fragile. Krishna consciousness is compared to a Bhakti Lata beach. Therefore, in this purport, we'll have this example. This is, as he said here, like a mad elephant of fence. We'll discuss this. But what means Bhakti Lata bead? You know when there is a little sprout? How many of you eat these monk sprouts? Somebody has some other sprouts. You know, there's a little sprout. And then you don't eat that sprout, but you keep it growing. You know, you want to have more sprouts out of that sprout. So of course you keep on growing. So you have that Bhakti Lata, that creeper of Bhakti that grows. So sometimes it needs support. You have to support it by something. Sometimes there's some fence or some stick or something. We need a lot of support. We need especially support that we receive in terms of association, encouragement from others. We need a lot of support. So any sproutling like this, it needs a lot of support. And it's very fragile, very fragile. We were just some months back in Chhattisgarh, and then there was some sprouting plant, right, that we expect is going to turn into some nice kadus, no? Kadu.
Pumpkin.
Kakadu. No, I'm joking. Pumpkin. And then, you know, just they're very fragile, You know, I have to be very careful. If you twist it a little bit, it's broken, it's gone. It's like you have to be very cautious. So like this, so we're trying to grow and trying to raise it, and then it's not easy. You have to protect it. So Bhakti Lata beach, it's very fragile. So we have to be very defensive, and we have to be very protective, because what happens? Of course, many animals can come, right? Like here, we see this mad elephant. If mad elephant comes into garden, your garden is finished. Or anything, you just trample everything completely. And then what to speak, maybe there might be, usually the analogy extends to the point explaining there are many weeds. What are the weeds? How do you say weed in Hindi? Huh? So which one is it now? Atta. Anyway, whatever. Parasites. Whatever. All these things are there. And then what we should do? We should pull them out. No? We should pull them out. Otherwise, they take all the nourishment. Yes, that's there. They. And very often, what happens? We water those weeds along sometimes with Bhakti Lata, but sometimes we pull the Bhakti Lata out. We mistake it for it. That's not funny. That's a very serious problem. So we have to be extremely cautious that we don't do that. That we distinguish what is Bhakti Lata and what are the weeds. But we water weeds. We want to see this movie. We want to hear that. We want to touch this. We want to, taste something else. And then we are watering all these weeds. And then all these weeds, also what may happen, even if we don't pull Bhakti Lata ourselves, then these weeds, grow and choke the Bhakti Lata, the seed of Bhakti, that we are trying to practice spiritual life. So we have to be extremely cautious. We have to be very protective. So that's why King Puranjana here, what he's doing. He's now he woke up. He realized, wow, this is something that I've been neglecting. But this is who I am. It's not different than I. It's not different than me. So he's very protective now. He's saying, I excuse no one within or beyond these three worlds. No one can freely move after offending you, for I'm prepared to punish him. Who is this? Who had offended you? Who is that? But who had offended? Who had offended? Who had offended? Yes. He himself. He himself. So now what? When he, I don't know, we'll see later on whether he's going to realize this. It's very nice attitude now. He wants to protect. He wants to preserve. Yes, that's noteworthy. That's encouraging. That's good. That's important. But he didn't realize he himself has been neglecting his own self, real self, not the false self, the real self. He's been neglecting his own consciousness. He's been neglecting intelligence. Yeah. So therefore, we should also understand that what is our position, what is our real self, what is our self-svarta gati, what is our real svart interest. We have to understand this, and there we have to be very protective. And then again, it's not anybody else that it's threatening us, it's ourselves. It's ourselves. Like they have a cartoon in the West, it said, oh, I've gone and I've been looking for the enemy, and I found who the enemy, and the enemy is us. That's like, so we are ourselves the worst enemies. And all those anarthas that we cultivate, those are real enemies. But we mistake them to be our friends. We think lust is my friend. If I satisfy my lust, yes. If I allow myself to expose my senses and exploit my senses in so many ways, and then I will be happy, I will be satisfied. But no, we just see, we become slaves. It just becomes such a pitiful, such a disastrous position. And when we are allowed, like this, to lose control practically of all our senses, of our mind. What to speak of mind? Nowadays, more and more people have to go to psychiatrists. More and more people, face anxiety, stress, threatened by so many things. Everything, it's all there, coming from the mind. They cannot focus, they cannot concentrate, they cannot control that mind. So it's nobody else. Our real enemy actually is us ourselves. It's nobody else. So how can one recognize this? Hey, that's what requires Krishna consciousness. That's what requires this practice. That's what requires this association. That's what requires this knowledge. Then first of all, we can recognize. Then we can start acting upon it. And we can start doing something about the real self. So that's what spiritual life enables us. It gives us that, first of all, recognition, and then the proper course of action. And of course, it gives us the goal and understanding what we are supposed to achieve, what kind of result we are supposed to gain. So that's what we have to do. And then that natural protective stage, it will manifest, and it has to manifest. Sometimes, no matter how externally it may sound, because I know, let's say, I give my personal example. I've been threatened not to practice this process. Of course, in the West, it's much more, it's different. It's a different conception. There's something from India and this and that. And then even my brother is like 5 years older to me. And then he was, he had black belt in Taekwondo, and it's like this and that, whatever. And then he threatened me. He said, if you continue reading these books or something, say mother is getting disturbed and this and that, then I will throw these books and this. And I said, yes, I won't read that. So you have to figure out the way. You have to be very protective. And I there was no way that I would stop reading, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam. Such a nectar. How is that possible? Finally, you see like you see the light at the end of the tunnel, as the expression goes. Finally, you find some hope. Finally, you find some meaning in life. And now you're supposed to give it up? No way. No way. I mean, I already had experience of so many nonsense things. What was there that had a substance? Nothing. None of it. And now, because somebody felt that just because this is something different or something whatever, then you're supposed to give it up. So I became very protective about my Krishna consciousness, and I was not disclosing anything about my Krishna conscious practices until some certain period of time came when I became more open with it. And now the things are different, you see. Now the things are different. My family had so much misunderstanding earlier. Now the situation is different. Because now they gain some understanding, and they gain some knowledge, and they gain some appreciation. So it's not easy. It's not easy. So one sometimes may be challenged like this about their Krishna consciousness from the external sources. But most common here in India, what I would say, the most common challenge, actually, of course, it's everywhere. It comes from us ourselves. It's us ourselves. It's these weeds and anartha that are pulling us, that are screaming, water me, water me. You know, they grow in so many different ways and they demand supply of nourishment. Yeah. And then the mind starts pushing and pulling and demanding, and we have so many urges. Yes, do this, do that. You know, and flame it more and flame it more, burn it. Yeah. Engage, supply, involve. So that's what we have to be very cautious about. That's where we have to be very protective. That those weeds don't overcome our bhakti. Because then again, what? Yes, you can go like in Puranjana, go to forest, hunt, try to enjoy the world, try to be happy. Where is it? Where is it? Where is that happiness? It's all a mirage. It's just a complete illusion. Again, we want to be fooled. How many times we have to be fooled? I mean, it's like really funny. Sometimes, let's say somebody sells you something useless. And again, the same person comes and then convinces you about some other nonsense thing and you purchase it again. I mean, what kind of fool you have to be? Now, how many times we're allowing ourselves to be fooled? You know that? You know, anyway, it's like how many times we have to allow ourselves to be fooled like that? So that's why Krishna consciousness gives us some intelligence, some buddhi, the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam. And what is that? That is that real essence of our existence, which is inseparable from us. That is really who we are. So once we hopefully discover that, and we should be very protective. We should be very protective. We should not allow ourselves to become distracted. So King, anyway, at least we may say there's some kind of natural reaction. There's some kind of natural propensity that he's exhibiting now. He's protective about his own intelligence. He's protective about his own consciousness. And he's ready. Maybe see now we'll switch a little bit discussion because it refers to some other points that are in relationship to certain other state of a living being. And that talks about the Vaishnava and the Brahmana. So he's ready to punish anyone. He's ready to punish anyone. Of course, as we said, he should punish himself. He should punish himself. Of course, that's not, it's not like now we have to keep on punishing ourselves. That we continue with the process. The punishment is not what it's required, really. There are different understandings of punishment. It's not now that we have to, how many times, maybe sometimes it may happen, we do something and then we feel guilty about it. Real punishment is repentance. That's sufficient, actually. That's sufficient. Really repenting for something that has been done but shouldn't have been done. That's being repentative. That's sufficient. That's sufficient. And then just continuing with Krishna consciousness, because what most often happens, one may fall into that kind of mode of ignorance, becoming depressed, becoming, wallowing in the self-pity and just all these negative emotions. And then where is one's Krishna's practice, Krishna conscious practice? Where is it? Where is it? Then we neglect it again. And we neglect it again just because of, I'm so fallen, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm so unqualified, and I did something horrible that shouldn't have been done. It's complete mode of ignorance. So one should never then therefore look back. One should repent, yes, far, but then move forward. One should move forward because we know the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare burns all the sins like a fire burns dry grass to ashes. So we don't have to, worry about what happened before. Just go forward. Go forward. Yes, we repent. We hope we never do it again. And of course, that should be the attitude. That should be the proper consciousness. But then we move forward. We move forward. We've all done it. We've all made so many mistakes. We've all disappointed so many people. We all offended so many. We all did so many horrible things. Better we don't know about it. There's no point of it. What is the point of knowing something about this? What is the point? Of course, if we did in the recent times, then as it is advised here, it'd be good to rectify that, directly approaching someone, asking for forgiveness, and trying to rectify that, trying to serve. That is what is important. That is there. That will relieve us from so many different kinds of obstacles that are created by that offense that we performed, that we did. And then again, still keep on moving within the process and looking for the opportunity to rectify, consolidate somehow different relationship that we might have obstructed in one way or the other. So this is what is discussed. This is what is the essence of this verse and the purport. And of course, from the social, even spiritual point of view, one should, like it is stated here, one should never punish a Brahmana, one should never punish a Vaishnava. But still, even then, there are corrections. It's not that one should not be corrected. They should be corrected. But maybe not by us. By somebody who is equal or who is superior to them. They should also be corrected. Punishment, it's, like I said, there are different understandings what punishments might be. Different. So one should not, sometimes some things are, in general, like Srila Prabhupada points out in the purport, generally Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, they follow the law. They are following the law. But sometimes there might be some discrepancies due to various kinds of circumstances, whatever those might be. And then one has to see what has happened. Because generally one won't commit the same mistake. If he does, then yes, then one it's not anymore. See, that's the whole point. If one keeps on transgressing something over and over, then he doesn't hold the position. One cannot be then accepted as a Brahmana, one cannot be accepted as a Vaishnava. And then one is definitely eligible for punishment. But if there is some minor transgression, and if one still continues practicing Krishna consciousness, then he will be rectified. He will immediately be rectified. Chipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat chantim nigachati konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. When one still continues practicing devotional service, he will become purified in the course of time. So we should be very careful. We should not therefore condemn someone. We should not criticize someone who is in such a position, who is still practicing Krishna consciousness, no matter what it happens. Of course, if there is anything, then we just inform or we seek some understanding from someone who is, as I said, equal or superior to them. And it's then their duty to act upon it and do whatever they consider it's appropriate. But we should be very cautious because it will affect that Bhakti Lata. It will affect our creeper of that growth of devotional service. So we have to be very cautious. Otherwise, it's like it said there, therefore, a little bit ahead in the purport, it's like a mad elephant effect. It just destroys our bhakti. So we should be conscious that what is our Krishna consciousness? We should not be neglectful. And therefore also when we deal with that Krishna consciousness, it's not that we should become destructive now in the mode of ignorance and start punishing ourselves or over-punishing for something that has been done. Yes, it has been done, but then what to do now? We have to move. Have to keep on moving. Because you can't stay where you are. Unless you keep on moving, then you will fall even lower than where you are. So then you will degrade yourself. So that's definitely not what is advised here. So here, Narada Muni is giving these instructions to King Parchinabarhishat. He's telling him this story of Puranjana, allegorical story. And what is interesting here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada points out who is Parchinabarhishat? Who is that person? Who is that king? He's not an ordinary king. He's the king, of course. He's the emperor of the world. We know that used to be the case. They were the emperors of the whole world. Not just like what we think now, some kingdom here in India, or maybe even whole India, or whatever. No, it was the whole world. And his forefather, that's interesting, was Maharaj Prithu, who is none other than Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's giving him as an example that he never chastised, Brahmanas or Vaishnavas. He never chastised them. But he corrected them. He could have corrected them by how? Engaging them properly. And here he said the process of sacrifice, charity, pious activities. So that is the process, of course, definitely by the direct spiritual process of chanting, hearing something about Krishna directly. And then Srila Prabhupada gives the example of Durvasa Muni, who was a great yogi, and he offended Ambarish Maharaj, who was a great devotee of Krishna, and he couldn't rectify that offense himself. By going even to Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu, he had to approach the person he had offended. So whenever we find some difficulties in our spiritual life, well, it is a fact. It is a fact that means we have committed some offenses. Or when we find ourselves to be very lusty, when we find ourselves to be distracted from Krishna consciousness, not having taste, we've done some offense. We have done something that was displeasing to someone or that was offending to someone. So we have to find out who that is. Like there's one interesting story about Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami. I think it was Rupa Goswami. He was absorbed in chanting the holy names. He was absorbed in chanting, sitting under the shade of one tree. And there was one Vaishnava who was passing by, and he was limping. Somehow he had such kind of some kind of karma, some kind of reaction. He was limping, and he was passing by. And then Rupa Goswami was very deep in his meditative state. He even entered. He was part of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And what he saw Krishna was in one tree, and then Radharani was down beneath. She was trying to fetch some fruit from that tree. And then she was like endeavoring to catch that fruit. And then what Krishna did, he stepped on the branch. So Radharani didn't see that Krishna was hiding inside in the tree. So he stepped on the branch and he lowered the branch so Radharani could take the fruit. But when she was about to take the fruit, he let the branch go and she couldn't make it. And seeing this, Rupa Goswami started laughing. It was wonderful pastime. Radha and Krishna have wonderful pastimes. So he started laughing. But then this Vaishnava who was passing by, he thought that this person is laughing at me because I'm limping. And then when that person left, when that Vaishnava who was limping left, then suddenly Rupa Goswami, he lost the vision. He lost the vision, and he could understand something is wrong. Something happened. Something is wrong. I lost that vision. Like we lose the taste for chanting Hare Krishna. We lose the taste to come to the temple. We lose the taste to associate with devotees. Why does that happen? Well, we must have done some offense. Generally, that's the case. And what is also offense, or we are cultivating some unwanted habits, unwanted weeds, unwanted anarthas. So then Rupa Goswami consulted and his elder brother Sanatana Goswami said, this is what had happened. And then Sanatana Goswami immediately said, you must have offended someone. Must have done something that's inappropriate. But then how to find out? How is it? And then what Sanatana Goswami advised, he said, organize some festival. Organize some festival with a lot of nice spiritual activities. Prepare an amazing feast and advertise this throughout. And then if somebody doesn't come, then you will know this is the person. This is the person who had been offended. So then they proclaimed all around and advertised and said that we are having a nice big feast and Rupa Goswami is inviting everybody, please come. And then everybody came and everything else, and they noticed that that person who was limping, he didn't come. And then Rupa Goswami approached him, he found that, he begged forgiveness and said, what is it? How come you didn't attend this feast, this program? And then that person explained that I was passing by and you were laughing, so I didn't feel very nice about that. And then Rupa Goswami excused himself and he explained that actually I wasn't laughing at you, I was seeing Krishna's pastimes, and then he rectified the whole situation. So that's why whenever something negatively happens, then we have to find out what was the cause. What was it? Because we can't rectify just by asking Krishna, oh Krishna, please forgive me for all my offenses and so forth. And like sometimes it might work, sometimes it won't work. Sometimes when we deal with others, we don't even know how we are dealing with others. We take things for granted and we might make some offenses like this. We have to be very cautious. So these are called mad elephant offenses because they destroyed that creeper. They destroyed that Bhakti Lata page. They destroyed that consciousness. Finally, we can't even imagine after billions and trillions and who knows, we discussed it last week, how many lifetimes we come in touch with this process. We're taking it for granted. And then we don't take care. We're not protective about it. And we expose ourselves to all kinds of nonsense things which are distracting us from our real self and making us just suffer and suffer more in this material. So we have to learn how to be protective, or at least learn how to place ourselves in an environment that is protective, somehow or other in appropriate association, that we don't lose this consciousness. Because you see, this is coming now, this will be explained also. What happens when one loses its real consciousness? What are the consequences? And consequences are the most terrifying ones. And being lost in this dark material existence over and over and over, suffering. It's just place of dosha nidya, like it said. Kali Yuga, especially Kali Yuga, place of dosha nidya, full of false, full of dark, full of quarrel and hypocrisy. That's what the age of Kali is. So that's what the only means of deliverance, the only hope is Kali dosha nidya janasti eko mahatguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha paramita. To achieve that liberation from all of this. Kirtana deva krishnasya. By kirtan, by glorifying Krishna. So that's why we have to be very cautious how we deal with each other, because actually devotees, we're devotees, we should understand, devotees represent Krishna. They might not be the best representatives, there are different types of devotees, that is a fact, that also has to be distinguished, that is also there, but still one should always be ready. What it means, Trinada, peace, Unichana. It's our formula of Swarup, our real Siddha, our Pranali, our original position. What is it? Trinada, peace, Unichana, Tarora, peace, Ishnuna, Manina, Manadena, Kirtaniya, Sadhari. So then when we can chant constantly, when we are tolerant, like a blade of grass, we are humble like a blade of grass, tolerant like a tree, and we are ready to give respect to everybody else and not expect respect for ourselves. That's the formula. That's what one Srila Prabhupada's God brother told him. What is the formula to achieve Krishna consciousness? What is it? He was joking with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was a chemist. Like now this pharmaceutical business is one of the biggest booming and profitable businesses. So Prabhupada was in that business earlier as a householder. So I was asking, give us the formula. What is the chemical formula? What is the formula to achieve spiritual success? And Prabhupada said, I know the formula. I'm just not able to mix it yet. So this is the formula. And we should find out how to mix it, how to apply it, how to utilize it. So being humble. Nobody ever loses anything by being humble. But of course, for us, it's difficult to be humble. We have such enormous false egos which are keeping us here in this material world. We think, I'm so important, I'm so great, I'm so this, I'm so that. As long as that is the case, we'll have to remain in this material world. Because we want to draw all the respect. We want to draw all the recognition. We want to distinguish ourselves. Labha, puja, pratishta, all subtle forms of lust. So as long as that is the case, and we can't advance in spirituality. These are all different kinds of weeds also that we have to pull out completely, not just trim, we have to pull it. Trimming is not enough. When you trim something, it will grow back, right? You trim your beard or something, it will grow back. You trim the grass, it will grow back. You have to pull out the root. Right? When you have hairs growing from your nose or something, you don't cut or something. Sometimes you have to pull it out. I don't know. Anyway, I'm joking. My point is, you have to pull some things out. You have to completely, destroy those. So these are the anarthas. We have to pull them out. And then only we can hope that we can achieve that state of complete humility, giving respect to others, not expect that respect to be given to us ourselves. And then we can chant peacefully. Then we can chant with full concentration, with full attention, And we can get then full benefit of chanting this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is now a good position of a king. Finally, he's advancing, he's recognizing something, he's gaining some consciousness, he's getting revived somewhat. So then we'll see next time what had happened in that interaction between himself and his higher Krishna consciousness. Okay, any comments or questions? Yes.
Like in Bhagavad we know that a person is, like you said, that he's still chanting the names.
Okay, let me repeat. In Bhagavad Gita, we hear that person who is still chanting, practicing all names. What?
He is to be he will be considered sadhu.
He will be considered sadhu,
even if he commits some
offense. Yes. So,
So
because we see that many times those offenses happen and people can't come to temple anymore, can't chant anymore, can't do this. So they're not saintly anymore. That means they really, badly affected their spiritual consciousness.
Suppose if we have offended someone before their devotional life.
Okay, we offended someone
Before their devotional life.
before their devotional life.
Then they start practicing. So will that offense be counted?
Will that offense be counted? Yes, if that person still holds some negative feelings about that. To some extent, yes. Because then at present moment, that person still, let's say, doesn't want to deal with you because he has bad experience about your behavior, your dealings, and so forth. But then yes, if person still holds it, generally Vaishnavas don't hold anything. They don't hold the negative feelings. But that's a high level of Vaishnavas. But some other lower level, Kanishta levels, they do hold. So then in that sense, yes. Otherwise, if that's forgotten or something, then no. And you'll just get general reaction, whatever is the reaction among dealings between living beings or whatever it is. Just have general reaction, not a reaction offending a Vaishnava. Okay? So, but in any sense, it said we should give him respect to the end, not to speak of anyone else. No? So that should be the consciousness. We should always be ready. We should never be disrespectful or offensive. We can only maybe take some strong position when somebody offends Guru and Krishna. Then one can be like a lion, and one should be like a lion. Otherwise, one should be said to be meek like a deer. Okay.
One other question with regard to Vaishnava etiquette, Krishna Avtar. So I'll just give you an example of one devotee. Like he was very neophyte in the beginning of his Krishna journey. He was searching for some authority, and he was like listening and hearing to different authorities, different dignitaries. Then one authority didn't like this, that he's like focusing on the classes and this and that, and then suddenly it happened that he gained some understanding of Krishna consciousness and he chose another authority. So that authority was kind of displeased and was kind of offended, and he wasn't talking with him. So although that devotee didn't know that he has to choose some authority. So in the neophyte stage, he he kind of committed offense.
That's going to be very difficult to repeat for me now. Now, such kind of questions you should ask after the class. Okay? Okay, anything else?
So not following four regulative principles is the same as offending Brahmanas or Vaishnavas?
Not following regulative principles. Well, pretty much when we don't follow regulative principle, we definitely harm someone or we exploit someone and we offend someone, yes. So not following regulative principles is offensive, yes, it is offensive. To which extent depends. To which extent somebody is exposed to it, or you're exposing someone. No. Yes, fast.
Prabhuji, does offering only pledge to Vaishnavas or
Huh? I
does
didn't.
offending, like you said, like Vaishnava upfront, right? So
Okay.
the person who is not following Vaishnavism or not like an atheist, so offending him, does it make us spiritually?
I didn't hear what you're saying. You have to speak clearly and loudly. What is that last point?
I just wanted to ask Prabhuji, is offending an atheist, like non-Vaishnav,
Okay.
considered like for it or
Offending someone, whatever it is, we should not do it without any appropriate reason. It should be avoided. Okay. Okay, we'll continue discussion after the class. So let's stop now. Time is up. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.